Good evening. Just trying to get rid of all this dangerous looking equipment over here. Well, good evening and welcome. Welcome to our students, our alumni, our distinguished guests. We're so grateful that you could take some time out this evening and join us here for our time with Steve Kerr, our special guest speaker. I'd also just like to welcome our faculty members. The faculty members, raise your hands. How many faculty members have we got? Excellent. Let's give them a round of applause. So I'm going to say a few words, and then we'll get to the part of the evening that you really want to get to, which is not to hear me talk, but Steve. But thank you, seriously, thank you for coming. As you can tell from my accent, I'm from the South. It's called South Africa. As I've been saying to some of my new colleagues at Pepperdine, you know, I've had some big jobs in my career, 32 years in business. I worked for Unilever for 12 years in primarily marketing kind of capacity. And then I joined the Coca-Cola company in London and worked for them for 20 years and traveled and lived in 8 different countries around primarily Europe. And my last role with the Coca-Cola company was president of their global venturing group. We made investments in entrepreneurial companies and made acquisitions and strategic alliances, joint ventures. And prior to that, I ran geographies for Coca-Cola, so Germany and the Nordics and Eastern Europe and the Middle East as a general manager. But I can say categorically that this is the most significant job I've had. And the reason for that is this is important business, raising and developing leaders of the future. We've all seen what happens when you decouple a leader from an ethical framework, be it in business or in politics. And I think Pepperdine is uniquely positioned to speak into that opportunity to develop leaders who are not just the best in the world at certain things, but best for the world leaders. And I'd encourage you to look into some of our programming. We have a program up here in this part of California. Steve Glynn, if you could just raise your hand, Steve. He is the man to talk to if you would like to join our executive MBA program. But we have a distributed model at Pepperdine going way back to the early 70s, late 60s. Pepperdine realized that it needed to take education to the working adult. And so we have around 6 campus locations, actually, where we do our executive education. We're excited about our future as a school. We're in the middle of a new strategic plan and visioning process. We've got some exciting new programs that we're going to be introducing. One of those, for example, in the fall of next year, we have created an Institute for Entrepreneurship. And young students will be able to go into this program with their business venture in mind already. They'll be screened for that, and then they'll go through a program and basically go through the stages that anyone would go through to launch a business, right? And they'd get credits for completing each of the stages, you know, writing their business plan, creating their marketing proposition, creating a board, raising funding, all of those different stages. And when they launch their venture, at the end of the program, they get a degree in entrepreneurship, and we take a small equity stake in their venture, and they get their tuition for free. Isn't that cool? So I think education is going to need to innovate. And I think that's one small expression of an innovation that we will be introducing. So if you're entrepreneurs in the room and you'd like to be part of that program, we're opening our doors in the fall of next year. We also have another very interesting program, baking in the oven, so to speak. It'll be a doctoral program for executives. So it'll be called a DBA, a Doctor of Business Administration. And it's for those executives who've reached that point in their career where it's about personal stretch, significance, the next frontier that they want to tackle, probably a 3-year program. But like our executive MBA, it's something that you would do, of course, continuing in your career and your job. So just 2 examples of the things we're working on. And without further ado, I'd like to invite a really good friend, Sam Lagana, up onto the stage. He's an Associate Vice Chancellor at the university. He's been with Pepperdine for 15 years, has been an outstanding advocate for the university, has developed a wide range of relationships, strategic relationships for the university. And Sam is also personal friends with Steve tonight, our special guest. So without further ado, Sam, could you please come up? Can we give a round of applause to Sam?
Thank you. Thanks, Jared. We're okay? Good. I probably don't need it. How's everybody feeling tonight? We are thrilled that you're here to be able to be a part of something special. And this is great that we could come up here to the Bay Area and have a executive leadership series event, particularly with the gentleman whom we're going to visit with tonight. We've been able to do these, as you know, throughout Southern California. We've had some up here in the Bay Area in the past. But tonight, we're going to have some fun because it's a little bit looser, a little bit sportier. Because we're going to delve into the greatest show on hardwood. We're going to delve into how to lead in the industry of professional sports, and particularly basketball. We're going to look at it, so we're going to investigate a little bit about the economics, the finance, the organizational culture, and we're going to dig in on strategic management. And to do that, we've got a guy who has some incredible experience at doing this. He grew up in Southern California, but was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and raised in the little community of Pacific Palisades, which for those of you that have been on the Pepperdine campus, we actually, from Pacific Palisades, like to call that Pacific Palisades West. Sometimes people in Malibu call it Malibu East. But our little town fostered some fine folks that got into basketball. And Steve came out of that Palisades Recreation Center, Palisades High model, went on to the University of Arizona, and Lute Olson discovered him. I think it was at Cal State Dominguez Hills in a shoot-around, and really didn't have too many other incredible offers, and Lute hadn't gotten anything going yet. But by 1988, the Arizona Wildcats were in the Final Four for the first time, and Steve was part of that program with Lute Olson. From there, he was drafted into the NBA and started a professional career. Number 50 in the draft by the Phoenix Suns. Then moved up the Cleveland Cavaliers, wound up spending a career in the great game of basketball, but wound up in this small other town called Chicago, where one year he got a little fortunate and kind of made one last shot that earned the 3rd world championship for the Chicago Bulls. Those were 3 straight, right? And then went down to San Antonio on a trade. And what'd they do there? Won again. Not only once, but a couple of years later, won again. 5 NBA rings. So you look at that and you say, okay, is it great skill, or is it also that leadership of working with other human beings to bring it together? And that's probably what happened. Went into broadcasting, had a good career there, and then all of a sudden the phone rang and said, hey, we'd like you to come back to Phoenix and lead. President of basketball for the Phoenix Suns, taking on the world of management. Did that for a number of years, and finished his final day, interestingly, with a surgery on his knee, if I'm correct. Yeah, remember that? On his knee, and then drove home to Rancho Santa Fe, where he and Margot live. And then went back to broadcasting, and then all of a sudden the call came. Maybe you might like to come to the Bay Area. How many here are Warrior fans? So what happened? The leadership team that had taken over the Warriors put it together and brought this gentleman up. And then the 6th ring was entered onto a hand. And last year, another great year with one of the most measurable victory records in NBA history, leading at every step of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Mr. Steve Kerr.
Thanks, Sam.
So tonight, we're going to spend time on leadership and business, but we do have to talk a little bit about basketball because that would make sense just a little bit. So last night, it's halftime. You're down by 12. You go into the locker room. Things aren't going well. The crowd's not that crazy Oracle crowd that the world is used to. What do you say to the guys that turns it around, that puts 50 points up on the board in the third quarter and a 12-point margin in your favor at the end of that quarter?
Yeah, it was a fiery speech that just... a couple guys were crying. They were so moved and touched, and then we do have a little bit of talent, so that kind of helped too in the third quarter. Yeah.
So you didn't have to. Let's get right into the thing that we're here for, the business of basketball. I'd like to call this leadership a scoring proposition. That's what you've been able to do well. In this industry of basketball, tell me this. What was the most complicated role that you've had in your career thus far?
Probably in Phoenix, being the general manager. I had no experience, and I went straight from the television booth to the management position, and I had to learn on the fly. And I did the same thing with coaching with the Warriors, but the management experience that I got in those 3 years at Phoenix dramatically helped me prepare for coaching, because there's a lot of very similar responsibilities. But jumping into management without any experience in Phoenix was tough, and I made some mistakes and had to learn quickly. But yeah, not an easy job.
So in your current role, you inspire, you inform, you instruct. These are the things that you have to put together. You do this with a bunch of personalities, people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds from their base to becoming millionaires particularly. How do you bring these people together in this cultural environment, and how do you level the playing field as a leader now?
What do you mean level the playing field?
Work with them all together, bring them together.
Yeah. Well, first of all, everybody's different. As you said, everybody comes from a different background, different parents, different schools, different parts of the world. And so the first order of business is to get to know them on a personal level. And so when I took the job, I made a point of flying all over the place and meeting with my players. And I flew to Australia to see Andrew Bogut for a couple of days. Literally flew down there for like 36 hours, no, about 48 hours, I think, and had a couple of dinners with him, and wanted to show him the respect that, hey, I'm gonna fly halfway across the world to come see you. You're our starting center. I want to get to know you. And so I tried to establish a relationship with each guy through communication, through a lunch here, a dinner there, before I started yelling at them on the first day of practice. They tend to listen a little bit better if they know you actually care. And so that, to me, that's the first order of business for any leader in any field, is develop the relationship first And then you can lay out your vision and you talk about your plans for what you have in store. But every person I've ever known responds to that human connection.
When you were in Phoenix and you started to take on that leadership role, what did you do to prepare for that one?
I didn't. Yeah, that's why I wasn't very good at it. I think, playing in the NBA for 15 years and then being in television for another 4, I was basically studying the NBA, every single day. But once I left Phoenix, I spent 3 years there. And as I said, kind of learning on the fly. I knew pretty early on that I wanted to coach. I knew that management was not my ideal job. And so I started preparing for this job the minute I left Phoenix. I spent 4 more years in TV, and during those 4 years, I really started to gather my thoughts. I pursued a lot of people who are friends, acquaintances, pursued advice from them. And I had a lot of great advice, one of which came from Jeff Van Gundy, who works in television, coached in the NBA for years and years. He said, take all your thoughts and just put them down on paper. Keep a computer file, and anytime something pops into your head, write it down. And start to develop what your philosophy is going to be, what you're going to be like as a coach, what your rules are, what your atmosphere is going to be like at practice every day, what your principles are. It was great. It was really great advice, because over the course of a couple of years, I literally wrote a book. Like, this is what I want to do, and I started to get different ideas from different coaches. I was visiting different coaches from different sports. Pete Carroll was a huge influence, Seahawks coach. Visited their training camp for a couple of days and was blown away by the atmosphere, the fun and the joy and the energy. And I thought, that's what I want our practices to be like. And visited with other coaches, basketball coaches, baseball managers, and it was fun. It was just great to meet all these people and to put all these thoughts together and say, all right, now I'm ready. And I wasn't ready in Phoenix, but I came here knowing I was ready.
That's a great advice, and in fact, our dean did something very similar as he was taking on this role, traveling around the world to meet other deans and find out how does he want to put it together. Now let's go into implementing that, the strategy of that. What do you do? What's a day in the life of Steve Kerr today as the executive?
Well, one of the things that I realized from visiting with all these coaches is that you have to have a set of principles that you base everything on. And a lot of coaches talked about this. But Pete Carroll was probably the most influential in that regard. He talked about how your personality as a coach has to be reflected in the workday, in the environment that the players come to every day. And so who you are as a human being, they have to grasp that and feel it, and without you saying, this is who I am. It's got to be the environment. And so one of the things that I always found as a player was that I played my best when I was just having fun. And so we talk about joy all the time, and we try to bring it in practice through humor, through competition, through whatever. We get people to come in to talk to our team at times. We'll take them to the movies. We'll go bowling on a day when they're expecting to go to practice, and I know the guys are fried, and we'll just take them to do something totally different. So part of what made me a good player was that I felt that joy for the game, and I had to fight for that sometimes when I get too stressed out about whatever was happening. And so I try to bring joy every single day to our guys as often as we can. That's what our staff does. And that's one of really 3 or 4 kind of core values that we share as a staff.
I've been told that your meeting environment is very casual, and that you like having kind of an open door with people coming in and bouncing ideas. Walk us through how you plan out and engage with the with your co-coaches?
Well, my philosophy on coaching is that it's the players' team, you know, and what we're trying to do as coaches is over the course of the season, we want to lay out the vision in the beginning of training camp. This is who we think you can be. The season gets started, you make some adjustments here and there with the lineup, with the strategy, all the while you're consulting with the players. What do you think about this? During a game, you know, you guys want to guard the pick and roll this way or that way? Now we'll make decisions too. We'll say, well, you know, this is what we're going to do, this, but we will sprinkle in questions. What do you think? So our players are empowered to know that they are the ones out there doing the work. They have a voice in what's going to happen. But by the end of the season, the goal is it's their team, and my goal by the end of the year is to just sit there and do nothing. And that means it worked. Because that's what a coach's job is. It's not to pull strings and call every play and direct traffic. This is your team. Here's the vision, but let's get to that point where you guys take hold and go with it.
It's amazing organizational behaviors that you're tying all this together. Talk about the family environment, Margot. You've got 3 kids. Margot, you're married to Margot since your college sweetheart. Yeah. You know, Nick, your son, is now an assistant here at Cal. Maddie is a student finishing up her school, and Matthew is in the midst of his college career. How do you ingrain your family and bringing the families together as part of the environment? I've been told that's a good part of it.
It is, yeah. We first of all, we encourage the players to bring their families around as often as they would like, and you'd be surprised they don't always want to bring their families around. But sometimes road trips are like you see the guys with the young kids and they can't wait to get on the plane and go away for 4 days. Sleep, you know. And we literally have a nursery going right now. We have, I think, 4 little babies that our players have had in the last year. It's awesome. But our organization does a great job of making everybody feel welcome. We have team dinners on the road. Families are invited to go on any road trip. Generally speaking, guys will bring their wives 3 or 4 times a year. If they have older children, they might bring a child. Zaza Pachulia, our center, he has a 10-year-old boy who flew on a road trip with us and was the ball boy that night. And to see the joy in Zaza's face watching his son hand out towels, and this little guy is so cute, he's so quiet, wouldn't say a word, he would just hand a towel. And, just say, and Zaza was so happy, and you could see the other guys smiling, and that's what it's about. It's a game, it's a sport, but we're together every day. And we want the players' families to feel that connection, and we want them involved, and our organization does a good job of it.
Doesn't it make you feel good? You know, it's with all those good things, though, sometimes you run into a crisis, and in your life, that kind of happened maybe a year and a half ago. You're getting queued up for the season, getting into the summer league. Practice is about to begin. You open it up, and you had surgery, and all of a sudden on your back, and all of a sudden something's not working right.
Yeah.
That's a crisis for that program. How did that affect you? How did it affect the team? And what leadership thoughts did you put together of like, how am I going to deal with this top to bottom?
Yeah, well, first of all, don't ever get back surgery. That's my advice to all of you. But I had a pretty tough time. I had to miss half the season, a lot of complications from the surgery, and I was fortunate. I had a great staff with me. And Luke Walton, who's, as you know, is now the head coach of the Lakers. Luke was perfect. Even though he was young and inexperienced, he was the perfect guy to step in and take over while I was out. And he did an incredible job. The rest of our staff did a great job. And I just tried to stay as engaged as I could without traveling on the road the first couple of months so that I could get my rest and do my rehab and just texting players, calling them, talking to the coaches every day. It was really hard. It's like you're not allowed to be part of the family. So you try to stay as close as possible. But the main thing was to remind the players and the coaches that we keep going, we keep doing what we do, and I'll be back. And it's kind of similar to an injured player. A guy goes down, somebody else fills in, and you keep rolling. It's about the group and about the team, and obviously we did pretty well. We actually did better without me than with me, I think.
Let's look at your career in the industry of basketball. You have been associated with some amazing brands in the game of basketball when the Bulls were doing well, even in their market, Phoenix, and now Golden State. By the way, the only team that does not have a state or a city in the name in the NBA.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. You get the whole state, and you don't even have to claim California. You're just golden. But taking a look at that from a marketing perspective, what do you see that was done well? What are the differences that you saw as a player and you've seen as a coach, you've seen it as a president? Yeah. What are the differences? Who did what well?
Yeah.
Or who did not do well?
Yeah, well, it's a great question because every franchise is different based on the market size, the fan base, how they approach their own circumstances. If you're in New York, your life is completely different than it is in Memphis in many, many different respects. And so I think each market, each franchise has to take advantage of their own circumstances and what they have going for them. For us here in Golden State, we can recruit free agents. I mean, we just did. We're one of the biggest signings ever in the history of the game. I won't mention any other cities, but it's a lot easier to recruit Kevin Durant to come live in the Bay Area than it is to go somewhere else, right? So that's our advantage. So we're going to be a free agent team. We're going to make sure, as Bob Myers, our general manager, did, we're going to make sure that periodically we're going to have a lot of salary cap room. We don't want to get bogged down. We want to make sure we can go after free agents. So Bob is looking at, who's coming up in free agency, and okay, if this guy's available in 2 years, we want to keep some money free for that year, right? Now you contrast that with, and I'll give an example because they've done a great job. Utah, okay? Utah historically does not get free agents. Players don't really want to live in Salt Lake City, and it's nothing against Salt Lake City. It's just not a popular spot for free agents. So they have been a wildly successful franchise for the last 30 years, building through the draft. So everything their best approach is, all right, we're going to draft our young players. We've got to hit on a few of them, and we're going to build our core around the draft, and then we'll cherry pick a few free agents here and there. But that's just kind of an example of how different it can be from one city to the next. But you really have to know your market, know your organization, and be good at whatever you can be good at.
Your marketing representatives, do they pull upon you to help carry the brand into the market, to sell those T-shirts, to push?
Yeah. Our players basically, I mean, that's what we're selling. We're selling our players' skill and their personality. And that's why right now we're in the midst of this glorious run. We've got a group with unbelievable skill, but they also happen to be just awesome guys. They're just fun to watch and to get to know, and you make a real connection with them. And you see, Steph Curry out in the community doing all the things he does, and how do you not latch onto that as a fan? How do you not teach your child, like, look at Steph Curry? I mean, what a great role model,
Right.
And but that's rare to have that combination of talented players who have a ton of character, and we have that, and that's why we're in this great run, and hopefully we'll keep it going as long as we can.
You've got to work with these situations, and when you were in Phoenix, you had a unique situation. There was a lot going on in the community that dealt with immigration at that time. A little different than what's happening in our national landscape today. But as a team, you guys decided to be the Los Suns. Talk about that experience. How did that decision get made? That was one of the first times in the NBA that there was a brand change on the jersey.
Yeah, it was a controversial. Well, there was a bill in Phoenix. I think it was called 10. It was the number like 1070. It was a bill that was very controversial. It allowed law enforcement to ask for citizenship papers if they stopped somebody at a traffic stop or whatever. And there was a lot of debate and argument about whether it was constitutional, about whether it was fair, and what it would mean. Would there be racial profiling? And so we, as a team, were against the law. And our players, we put the players up. We put the vote up to the players if we wanted to wear these jerseys that we had. That we didn't make them for this event. We already had them. They're called, as you said, Los Suns on the jersey. I think there's about 7 or 8 teams in the NBA who do this every year. Have like a Latino night and wear the Los Suns or whatever, Los Warriors, and so we had these jerseys already. And so in support of the people who were against the bill, we decided to wear them, and it was very, very controversial. We got a lot of backlash. We also had a lot of support, but it was an interesting time, and but our players they felt very strongly about it.
You're making those kinds of moves, and you're looking at a team, and you've got to move through a lot of things like that. You've got to sample the players, sample the management, sample the audience. Let's go back to the Warriors. You guys are about to make a move from Oracle back to the city. Mm-hmm. Played in Daly City, played San Francisco a little bit in the career of the team. But for the most part, Oakland's been the home.
Yeah.
How do you guys prepare for this? How are you working through this as a team and looking at this and preparing everyone for this kind of move?
Well, first of all, as far as players and coaches, it's 3 years away, which is like dog years in the NBA. It's 21 years actually. So none of us are even the slightly concerned about it because it's so far down the road for us. I mean, we're the players come and go, coaches come and go. So there will come a time. It's probably a year and a half away where players will start to think about where am I going to live and how are the logistics going to work out, and so we look at it more from an organizational standpoint. Our ownership is paying for the entire building. There's no state money involved, no city money. They bought the land. It's going to be a cash cow. It's going to help the franchise get better players, better everything. It's going to put us in a class that really is right up there with the Knicks and the Lakers in terms of revenue, and it's one of those things you have mixed emotions about. I mean, Oracle's a spectacular venue, and the people in Oakland and the East Bay, it's been their team for a long time. So it's sad in some regards, exciting in others. Ultimately, we're only moving 11 miles away. That's what I try to remind people. It's not like we are the Chargers moving to LA. We're still the Bays team. We're still the Golden State Warriors. So I think it'll be fine. I think it's going to be great.
The Chargers are moving to LA?
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Guy from LA doesn't even know that. That's
right.
Yeah.
Looking at all these changes that are going on, collective bargaining agreement, that's a big change. How do you view, from like finance standpoints for the organization, as a player, how would you view that? Now as an executive, how do you view that? What are these changes that have come up with the collective bargaining agreement?
Well, everybody has to look at it from their own perspective. So as a player, you're looking at it like, all right, what does that mean for me when I'm a free agent? As an organization, what does it mean for our team? And how can we build our team? And one of the reasons we have a great roster right now is that we've got a lot of guys who are either all-stars or former all-stars, and we've been able to fit their salaries in under one cap. Some of it is luck. You know, Steph Curry signed a contract 4 years ago or 3 years ago because he had ankle problems that has left him as, you know, highly underpaid, relatively speaking. And unfortunate for Steph, but at the same time, it allowed his relatively lower salary allowed us to sign Andre Iguodala, who becomes Finals MVP. So as far as looking at the salary cap, and it's really Bob Meyer's job, not mine, but Bob and his staff are looking at, you know, constantly building the team and looking what it's going to look like. And it's about to get really expensive, you know, with both Steph and Kevin Durant are free agents this summer. So, yeah, it's coming. It'll be a challenge to maintain the type of depth that we've had the last few years.
But then you can always go back to, you are in the Bay Area, and it's a good place to be.
It's a wonderful place to be, and as long as we have this kind of success and this kind of talent, we're going to get the key free agents who are maybe guys like David West and Zaza Pachulia. You get them for cheaper because they want to play on a great team, and that's a pretty nice position to be in.
In your lifetime, you've had a lot of engagement with social responsibility. You've gotten involved in many organizations, particularly stuff that has been supportive of areas of interest to you personally, and whether that was stuff that was in the Middle East, tied to some of the complications. Steve's father was assassinated while he was president of the American University in Beirut, and you've been supportive of trying to bring good relations to that. You talk with your team about social responsibility. How do you encourage social responsibility about these young guys? You've got some 24, 25-year-old millionaires, and you have the opportunity to share with them some pretty good insights.
Yeah.
What do you do, and how do you talk to them about social responsibility?
We just try to give them perspective more than anything. You know, and what I mean by that is it's easy to get wrapped up in, you know, every game, every day. It's basketball, basketball, basketball. And one way to take the pressure off the players in terms of, you know, winning and you know, all the fan interest and the media interest is to talk about other stuff, is to remind them, you know, whether it's about their families or what's going on in the world. We have guest speakers come in. We had a movie producer come in and show his movie and give a talk afterwards. We had a panel of community organizers and activists come in and talk to us after the Colin Kaepernick stuff really started to become a huge story in our country. So we just tried to kind of entertain them and educate them. And this is, you know, this is once every few weeks. It's not every day, but it's just, you know, keep things interesting and remind them that there's a whole world out there that has nothing to do with the NBA, and no, you know, a lot of people who don't care about basketball at all. There's a whole different world out there, and it's important to check it out a little bit.
In 1989, 1990, were any coaches talking to you about that kind of stuff?
I would say my first experience with that was with Phil Jackson. So that would have been, I got to Chicago in '93. And he was the first coach I had who really talked about social issues, and it was great. I mean, he was very interested in the world anyway. But it wasn't just politics. It was, Phil had a real interest in Native American history. And so we would watch video every day in our gathering room. It was a film room, and the room was adorned with Native American art. And sometimes he would tell a story that, you know, he would equate something that was happening with our team with a story about a tribe. And it was fascinating. It was great, and it was true to him. He wasn't like, you know, making this stuff up. I mean, he grew up in South Dakota near an Indian reservation and had immense interest in this. And so he was the first guy to really sort of expand horizons a little bit as far as a team was concerned.
Let's bring it in back into the leadership overall. John Wooden had some influence on you as a younger man. Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich.
Yeah.
You know, looking at Alvin Gentry, I think, if I remember our discussions before, these people had some influence on you. What have you gleaned from them? And you even talked about the Seattle situation. What have you gleaned from them? Like, as you put all of that together, did any one of them have it just extraordinarily right? Or is there just the bits and pieces?
Well, nobody has it right. You know, nobody has it right. Everybody can be successful, but it takes some luck. It takes circumstances. But the one thing that I gleaned from each one of them, they all told me the same thing. Be yourself. You have to be yourself. You know, you can't try to be somebody else. And you can take bits and pieces, which I've done. I've taken ideas from Pop and from Phil. But it has to be genuine. It has to be real, because your players, they see right through you otherwise. And when you're genuine, and when you really reveal yourself to your team, and they know your intentions are pure, and then what you want is what's best for them, now you can coach them. Now you have a real relationship, and now you can build that momentum as a team that you want.
As we're bringing it down, what do you say drives Steve Kerr?
I love competition. When I got into TV, it was a great job, but it was a convenient job that allowed me to spend a lot of time with my family, which was really the most important thing for me at the time. Once the kids all went off to college, my life changed. I knew I wanted to compete again and to be part of a team again. And so it's just, I love my job. I love what I do, and I love going to practice every day. And lucky, I have a great family, great wife and kids, and they're wrapped up in it. They come to all the games, and it's something we kind of do together. And we share our life together, and I'm lucky, incredibly lucky.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time. Your mom, Ann, often I see her on the television as she's at the games. How often do you get to hang out with Mom?
She lives in L.A., and so she comes to pretty much every Laker or Clipper game, and that we play against. She lives in the same house where I grew up, and she's great. She's still healthy and active, 82, and swimming every day, and working at UCLA in the Fulbright Scholarship Program, and she's fantastic.
It's pretty impressive. I'm going to close with 5 questions, and I'm going to open up a couple questions to you, but kind of 5 fast questions. What's your favorite moment as a player?
My last season with the Spurs, I was 37. I was probably 3 years past my expiration date, but I had one playoff game that I'll never forget. I hadn't really played the whole playoffs, and I just tried to stay ready, thinking maybe I'll have one moment, and I did. Our point guard, Tony Parker, who's still playing, he got food poisoning, and I went in and played the second half of the game and made a bunch of threes, and we won. It was like, I thought my days were over. I thought I was just, winding down, and I had one final moment at 37, and that's probably the best moment of my career.
You talked about the complications early on in this. What was the most complicated moment as an executive?
Most complicated moment as an executive, my first year in Phoenix, we had a team, and if you're a diehard basketball fan, you'll remember this. It was the Nash, Marion, Stoudemire teams. And before I got there, they had built this great team, but they had come close 3 or 4 times, and now we were the window was starting to close, and we had to decide whether we wanted to keep the team intact or make a big deal, make a trade, and go for it. And I was really torn, and we ended up making the deal. We traded for Shaq, actually, near the end of his career. We knew we were too small as a team to win. We needed a big guy, and we went for it. But it was a terribly difficult decision, and it did not work out. I mean, we took a swing and we struck out. But that was a good lesson for me too. I learned a lot just going through that process.
Most memorable moment as a commentator?
Probably doing the Final Four, because I worked for TNT, and we just did NBA games, and that was my whole world, was the NBA over the previous 15 years as a player. That's what I knew. And then my second go-around with TNT, around 2011, 2012, they all of a sudden got the NCAA tournament package, and they said, you're gonna do the Final Four. I was like, oh my God, this is, I don't know anything about college basketball, and now I'm gonna be doing the Final Four. I basically would watch Arizona, and that was about it. And so it was fun because the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, you do 4 straight games in one day as a broadcaster. So you have 8 teams that you have to prepare for, and chances are you've seen one. I mean, who's watched Southwest Missouri State play basketball other than their parents? Go Bears. So that was eye-opening, but also thrilling because I grew up a huge UCLA fan, watched it, the Final Four year after year, John Wooden, hanging the banners, and all of a sudden there I was actually it was the Houston, whatever the dome is called in Houston, not the Astrodome, the new one. I don't know what it's got
NG or whatever.
Some corporate names on it. But sitting there to broadcast the Final Four with Jim Nantz and Clark Kellogg, it's like, I'm supposed to be doing NBA games, but here I am. It's really fun though. It was a thrill.
Looking off into the horizon, what do you see as retirement looking like with Margot?
Coaching for a long time, for sure. Yeah, this is, thank you. This is what I love. I'm 51, so hopefully I've got a ways to go. Love the Bay Area. Love working with Bob Myers and Joe Lacob and the organization. And we want to be good for a long time. Obviously, it's a hard thing to do. But I look at what the Spurs have done over 20 years and the way they've sustained that organization and the success. That's kind of our goal. And so I would love to be around for a long time and keep winning.
Grow the silver beard like Pop did.
Yeah. Be the weathered old guy with the old sage.
Grizzled.
Yeah.
Right? Final question. When are you going to run for president of the United States?
Well, one thing I've learned this year is that I know I have a chance.
We got a couple minutes to open it up. I'm going to start the lady behind the guy in the checkered shirt, because I saw your hand go up first, and you're wearing, stand up so everybody can see what you're wearing. We have a microphone for you.
Klay Thompson jersey.
Yeah, she's got her Klay Thompson on. Here it comes.
It's coming on.
There you go.
On?
Yep.
Coach Kerr, thank you for being here. And I also want to thank you for leading by example in this culture. And I want to ask you about your tweet. And I want to thank you for that, tweeting about the importance of a free press and that facts matter. And I want to thank you for that. And speaking of executive leadership and the free press, what do you think about today's development, the White House shutting out members of the press from the New York Times, CNN?
I didn't even know that.
White House shut out reporters from the New York Times, CNN, Politico, who else? New York Times, LA Times. They were banned from the White House press meeting. So I thought
legal?
What's that?
Is that legal?
That's a question. I think that's a question.
Or does that matter?
I think that's a question, but I wanted to thank you for speaking up on behalf of a free media.
Thank you. Thanks.
This gentleman standing up. Right here. Thank you. The green.
Patrick McDermott. I'm a Chicago fan. Was watching you win the Bulls championship, so thank you for that. My question is about your assistant coaches. How do you delegate and empower your assistant coaches and keep them motivated and allow them the creative license?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I believe in everybody feeling empowered and included, and we have 7 coaches on our staff. The league's changed a lot. When I was playing in the middle of my career, we had 2 assistant coaches. Now everybody's got 7 or 8. But what we do is everybody kind of has a role, different role. We have 3 developmental coaches. They're on the floor before practice starts with players, working them out. We have 3 coaches on the front of the bench who are more my counsel. I have an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator who I consult with every day. But one thing that we do that's probably a little different from other teams is we assign 3 or 4 teams for scouting purposes to each and every coach. Most teams only include the main 3 assistant coaches on the front of the bench with the scouting stuff. We include all 7 of our guys. So we've got young guys, 23 years old, who just out of the video department, who are leading the scouting report. And what that means is when we practice, tomorrow, for example, we play Brooklyn. We'll practice at 10 o'clock. We'll have a video session to go over the Brooklyn roster and their strategy. And the Brooklyn scouting report will be assigned to one of 7 people. And it's that person's responsibility to stand up in front of the group, talk about what's happening, what our strategy is, what we're going to do. So you got, it's a pretty big responsibility, and especially for a young coach who's not used to it. But our theory is they should be involved. It forces them to get to know the league and to prepare for everything that's coming their way, and it makes them feel more a part of it.
Very good. This gentleman right over here. Thank you.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for coming again. Appreciate it. This is going to be a loaded question, but I'd like to get your response. So we won World Series, then we lost to the Cavs, and then we had a great team. The fan following was amazing at that time. What made up your mind that we still needed somebody like KD, and then we had to give up so much? Some people felt that strength in numbers went away. And how did you manage the sentiments of the other players and getting KD to accept the Warriors as a team and get to know them? And then having to go back as an all-star for the West and get Westbrook and KD start talking again. How did you manage all that?
It's a lot of questions in one.
I think they call that compound questioning.
I'm trying to think of the first question. All right. So last year, losing to Cleveland after the season we had, and then getting KD. Well, first of all, if you go 82-0, you still try to get KD. He's that good. So yeah, we wouldn't have gotten him if we had won the championship last year. He would not have come. He told us that. I think he would have felt sort of awkward. And obviously we wanted to win, and we're disappointed we didn't. But it was a pretty good consolation prize to get him, and he fits right in. One of the reasons we wanted him, we wouldn't just want any superstar, and that's the truth. Certain guys would not fit in. Certain guys, and I'll just throw his name out. Russell Westbrook, for example, would not be a good fit with Steph Curry. And Klay Thompson. Russell Westbrook needs the ball all the time. Kevin Durant doesn't need the ball all the time. He likes to move without it, which is what we do. We like the ball to move from one player to the next, and Kevin was perfect for that. So we knew it was a great role. So he fit in beautifully right from the beginning. He's a great teammate. He's unselfish. He loves to be part of what we have here, and he's having a ball living in the Bay Area. The last thing with the All-Star game, we didn't really do anything to try to break the ice. We figured, they're on the same team. They got to play together. It's going to happen organically, and it was fine. I mean, it wasn't like a homecoming or anything, but they were cordial, and it worked out fine.
Thanks. I'm going to ask you, Steve, real quick. We've come up to about the time. Just to introduce your guest you brought with you and tell us how you know your guest.
My friend Craig Reeves.
Where is he? Stand up,
Craig.
Craig.
In the back.
There he is.
Craig was my college roommate at University of Arizona. As he pointed out, there were 3 roommates, Craig, me, and Margot, my wife. So. But we've been friends forever, and he's with Stryker, and Stryker I know has a lot of Pepperdine MBAs, and so he paid his $25. Yeah. I tried to comp him, but he didn't.
I don't even know, you know. It's like,
here he is.
But as he said, he got the best parking space in the lot.
That's right.
So
that's right, which is the hardest thing to do.
Let's bring Derek up. We've come back to the time when we'll bring our dean back up to wrap up our day. We're going to have Dean Van Rensburg tie things together for us.
This feels like one of those old churches in the south.
Yeah, right.
You sort of walk up
South Africa, right?
Hasn't it been great? Let's give Steve a round of applause. Thank you, Steve. So, Steve, we have a special gift for you. It's the waves symbol from
love it.
Pepperdine University. So
Awesome.
congratulations.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's great. That's great. Love it.
Great.